Out. Okay. Here we go. Well, great to see everyone. I know it's getting busier and busier for folks, and so you may not have had a chance to read much of the devotion for this week, but hopefully you got a chance to do some work in the past, the Christmas past section of the book. Gave us a lot to think about and to reflect on. And what we usually do, Kathy, is since we're kind of ahead in the class session and then we reflect back on the week, we usually spend a good deal of time talking about what we reflected on or learned out of the reading this past week and the prior material. And then we do just a little bit of a conversation to get us ready for the new material about the Christmas present. So, and then the sermon series last week, or that was just yesterday, was the Christmas past, and of course will be in Christmas present next week. But share a little bit about your reflections and learning from this material on the Christmas past. Did anything stir your spirit or make you think in some new ways or create some new space with God?
I thought the paragraph on page 65 just was great. That first paragraph about celebrating Advent and what the waiting does.
Katie, could you be a little more specific? I've misplaced my book.
Okay, well, he's talking about Advent before that as a time of waiting, and that waiting can be good. Slowing down and being patient and waiting can be good and can teach us things. The beautiful thing about Advent is it gives us permission to do the same thing, to slow down, to waste time, to allow room for our souls, in our souls, for desire to sit and wait. And then he has the bigger paragraph, the next page. So I thought that really touched me, because despite how busy we are, there are times when I think we just sit and think, oh my gosh, I have to stop now and I have to eat something, or I have to watch something mindless on TV or something. And however busy we are, we do that sometimes, and it's necessary. So that really, it really made sense to me and gave me a new perspective on what you do during Advent. I mean, I know we wait, but this just kind of put flesh on the bone of what that waiting meant.
Did that cause you to try something new this week, Katie, related to pausing differently or waiting differently?
It made me feel less guilty when
Mm.
I just stop, because I think about, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do and I haven't done it yet. But it's stuff I like doing. It's not like a burden. It's just, I wish I had more time, and I just decided, if you need to stop.
Yeah.
So rest. I mean, I don't know if we don't rest much during Advent, and we need to rest more.
Mm-hmm. Really important. Cookie baking can be a good place for some waiting, if you don't fill up everything between the 10 minutes of each sheet of cookies, that could be kind of a ritual for waiting a little bit. Good. Were there other awarenesses that came to you as you're reading?
I thought the question on page 65 says, some people feel that reliving the past is a waste of time, but how does one doing just that have a profound effect on Scrooge's perspective? And for probably quite a while, I thought it was a waste of time to go into the past. But after I went and rented the movie and watched it, because I had never watched it.
Oh, yeah?
So yeah. And in that scene when he's looking at his past, it was kind of like, at least how I understand it is, when I'm in the moment, I'm in the moment. I don't really see myself. I'm just being. But if you can look back on yourself and like hindsight is 2020 kind of, you see, oh wow, was I really like that? Or were those people really treating me like that? And you know, it's like the truth is brought to you clearer or something. And then it's like a replay of your life, basically, like in the movie. But unfortunately, we don't have replays in our life. We can get people to explain it to us, perhaps, but to see it through your own eyes is pretty profound, I think.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? What I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that one of the questions is, do we relive the past or we reflect on the past? Are we to, what kind of power do we give our past story, and what kind of a relationship do we have with our past? I think that's a big part of what he's trying to help us think through and reflect on a little bit, right? And then he even talks about some of the past that we reflect on or remember isn't even really the reality, right? We've embellished it, or we've forgotten details, or those kinds of things. So, what kind of power do we give reflecting on the past?
Well,
That's
I
like,
think sometimes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you can't learn from the past, how are you gonna change?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah. I was just going to say that sometimes, at least personally for myself, you make yourself busy to avoid looking back
Yeah,
at some things in the past. Sometimes it's hard.
it's hard. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard. And the busyness helps us think we are too busy. We make ourselves too busy to stop and think and reflect and remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just this afternoon,
go ahead, Maggie.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We got a emergency phone call from Ben's sister, who doesn't usually call us with an emergency kind of thing. And it's kind of like both of us uncharacteristically went worst case scenario, and it wasn't worst case scenario in our minds, but it wasn't hers, in terms of she may have some cancer cells, and that brings up all the stuff about her mom died of cancer. And so we were talking a lot about the past, and particularly this time of year tends to bring a lot of that up. And it's kind of like there's a part of me that goes, oh, we really have to go through. And it's like, she really needed to. That's one of the ways she processes the present, is by going to the past. And it was valuable for me to realize, again, that she's just a very, very different way. She's a very different person than I am, and has had life experience that's very different than mine. So it's helpful. What I'm trying to say sometimes.
Well, that's so wise, Maggie, and that she knew she could reach out to you, for you all to be patient with her in that processing. And it reminds us how, we filter how to deal with the past through our own wrestling experience with the past. And then we lay that on top of others who have to do it very differently. And some of the waiting and slowing down, perhaps, of the season is being empathetic enough to understand someone else's patterns and practices and dealing with the present and the past. And not just suggesting in our own minds that, well, they should be dealing with it the same way we do. And you both spent time enough with her to be in her space. That's beautiful.
And of course, there were 30,000 other things that I was thinking I was going to do during that time. And it's like, somehow the priorities changed very rapidly. And I think thinking about the past, at least for me, sometimes changes the present for me in terms of priority.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Advent does that a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time you spend reflecting on the past depends on the situation. I know reflecting on the past for things that bring sadness, you know, you want to get out of that as quickly as possible, but you like to kind of linger in the past on things that brought you a lot of joy. At least for me, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think depending on what it is you're reflecting on, sometimes it's a nice thing to reflect on the things that have brought you joy or whatever in the past.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you all with siblings, when you gather in the holiday time, you know, these are people that came out of the same womb as you. But do you ever have that experience of sharing a past story that you all lived, but you realize how differently that one common experience is filtered through the life and worldview of each of those siblings? It's almost alarming sometimes to think, wow, do we even come from the same family? And so some families will avoid that. And some families can find the fun in it, you know, if in fact it's a decent memory and not a really painful one, but it's a lot of fun to see that happen. Any other learnings that came?
I just know that we hosted Christmases. I have 4 siblings, and after our mother died, we decided we'd all host a Christmas every other year somewhere, and they all live in different states. But there was one time in particular, the Advent time, we were at one family member's home in Illinois, and we talk about it now, and yeah, one sibling says, no, he started the fight, and the other one says, no, I remember it was her, and someone else says, what fight? And oh, and so you're absolutely right, Amy. It's everyone's either in denial or has different pair of glasses on, or
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
yeah. So if that could happen around a dinner table or a family table, you know, multiply that by tens and tens and tens, right? In a church family or in a extended family or in a workplace, right? We're all working through those filters of how we wrestle with the space and with that past. How do we create space with all those differences? How do we create space? So sometimes, like Maggie's saying, it's kind of abruptly interrupts our day, right? But you created space in that moment when you got interrupted with that phone call today. But how do we create space for those kinds of encounters and conversations so they aren't just quick and kind of quips, or they don't even get addressed because we're in such a hurry?
I stop and listen to music and just really listen to the lyrics. I mean, like the hymnal at our church. Wow, you know, really old. I love to look at the dates and who wrote them. And anyway, that really stops me at home, is when I just sit and truly listen to 5 songs in a row or whatever it is. It teaches me, you know, what the meaning of all this is. it stops me.
That's a great discipline.
That's interesting, Barb, because I was thinking yesterday at the service when the computers weren't working, you know, singing, reading the words in the hymnal, I almost process them more than reading them up on the screen in the sanctuary. So that felt really special to me, reading as I was singing out of the actual hymnal.
Oh, that does Tim's heart good, Veronica.
Yeah. It's not the same when you're just reading it on the screen.
You're right.
Yeah.
And I was telling Tim, I felt blessed because I got to hear the cantata both ways. We did get it, the screens to work, the computer to work. And so the words were up for the second service, but I was so grateful to hear the music without the words, because you're just kind of in a different brain space of reading and being very linear. And so I felt fortunate that I got to hear the music without focusing on that. And then some of those songs, I wanted to really hear the poetry to read them. But it takes your mind into some different spaces and interactions with the music. Yeah.
To answer your question, I think sometimes I just make space when I realize, in this case, it was an emergency for Deb, and so consequently it became an emergency for us. And it's like, you know, those other things, that Christmas letter can wait.
That's right.
The finishing of the decorations can wait.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of texts that are pinging through my computer. Sorry.
And I lost
So-
my internet, so.
Yeah,
sorry.
welcome back. Kathy, we're going to share something?
Well, Maggie's comment just made me think about what happened this weekend at our house. My son and his wife needed care for just two of their kids for a while the older, who could babysit, was at a party. And we had chaos with our Christmas tree this year, so it wasn't completed, and the house was just a total mess. So I was planning on going over to their house, and then I thought, no, I pumped it up during the day and brought the kids over to our house, and we did cookies. And this is a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they did all the mixing and measuring and learned how to use my kitchen center, Oster Kitchen Center. And that wouldn't have happened. I mean, I would love to have that happen every year, but it's not necessarily, almost every year we end up doing cookie decorating, but it's always spontaneous like that.
Oh, cool.
And I probably should be more intentional about setting it up, and then the older child joined us later and did all her decorating, and it was I think this is a really good memory, of the Christmas present, which will be Christmas past.
Right.
So stepping out of what I had really intended for the evening, Maggie.
Yay!
And I was up till all hours.
And that could be one of the most profound memories of this year, potentially.
Yeah, yeah.
As you allowed for it to unfold.
Yeah, it was great. It was good.
So I kind of the theme I heard from both Maggie and Kathy was that to create space, we have to be flexible. So, and not be as, maybe as planned. And then maybe that's all a part of this being patient, is just be flexible and take in what comes your way, which is really cool.
And that very much impacts our Christmas present, right? As well as our Christmas past. And one of the things Rawle will say in the next chapter about Christmas present is it's just fleeting, right? Because right now, this present moment, a minute from now, is the past moment. That's kind of mind-blowing. And so the space that we have, the holiness and the beauty of the space that we have in present is just that momentary. And so to be flexible, like you're saying, Julie, we can encounter something that we may not have encountered if we weren't. That's great. I'm wondering, are there any new practices, or we're kind of stepping into this already with the flexibility, but any new practices that we're taking on, or intentional things that we're doing a little differently this year as we reflect on some of these thoughts?
I'm not putting so much emphasis on decorating, because what's a penguin got to do with the Advent on a sled? But I had one blown up and out in the yard last year, but I don't know. I'm just thinking differently. I'm thinking more of like a cross or something like that, or just lights, because it seems like the lights remind me of the shining star of the story. Anyway, so I'm not really hustle and bustle on the decorations.
That's a great discipline. I'm kind of finding that myself that way too. I'm just kind of, I don't know, just more subdued this year in wanting to decorate. And so I'm just asking myself, what's gonna bring me joy to put up this year, and what can stay in a bin and wait. The have to is more subdued this year, and that feels kind of liberating. So if I get a wild burst of energy to open something up and put it out, I do. But if I don't, I don't. And I recognize, I think a lot of the decorating I used to do is for my kids, and I don't have to do that anymore. And so that's also kind of liberating. I don't know that I had to do it back then when they were there, but I felt like I wanted to. But it's nice not to have to worry about that as much. Those of you with grandkids might feel differently. You might feel like you gotta decorate for them now. I don't know, but it's kind of nice.
It's actually, my daughter comes over and goes gung ho on it. I really could do without half of it. But,
yeah.
And she doesn't have the grandkids yet. So I guess she wants me to have it.
So you're happy to let her do that. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do that.
Does she take them down though?
Yeah.
No. No.
So on the years I go to Chicago, I don't decorate nearly as much because I won't be here.
Yeah.
But I'm still putting up my tree because I love when it's up. I love to see the lights. And so there's still some stuff I'm going to do, but definitely when I'm not here, I don't do anything outside. And although I love seeing decorations, the houses that have put them up, that one on Carr further south I just love to turn and see that house every time I drive to church.
And I have the sense, Katie, that they love doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know those people, but my sense of them is that they love doing that.
And Jennifer and I have a really good memory of that house. I'm not telling it.
Speaking of remembering things differently, right?
We took her niece, I call her my grandniece, but she's my niece too, up there when she was about 2 or 3.
No, just barely 2.
Okay.
Maybe.
And yeah, we were taking her out to see all the lights, and she fell and scraped her knee.
Oh.
She was trying to run up to everything at that house. And but we soothed her and put her back in the car, and it was just a really nice memory. Not that she hurt herself, but how we gave her love and told her it'd be okay.
That's awesome.
And now she's
I
11.
thought you said you soothed them. The people whose house where she fell. Sorry, Barb. I was like,
That's all right.
but you soothed her. Yeah. That's a great memory. Any other practices or behaviors we're trying out this year or taking on?
We
It
heard,
seems like there's,
go ahead.
sorry, seems like there's a whole lot more music this year. I don't know if it's true or not, but I know Ben's participating in more music this year. That's accurate. And it's kind of like, well, golly, that's the priority this year. By golly, some other things that Christmas letter just may become a New Year's letter.
Yeah, Epiphany letter, that's right.
An epiphany letter, exactly.
Remember, Christmas doesn't start until Christmas Day in our Christian life, right, Maggie? So you got plenty of time. We're just in it. That's great. Any others?
I
I
was gonna say that we're trying to, I am trying to cut down on material gifts. So that's one thing I told all the girls this year. It's like, okay, you're gonna get a small gift under the tree, but other than that, send me what charity you want me to donate, what alternative gift market thing you want me to gift in your name, or if you absolutely want something for yourself, pick a museum that you want a membership to, or something experiential that is not more stuff that we don't need. We all have so much stuff. So
How do they
that's
respond
something.
to that? How are they responding to that, Veronica?
They've actually responded really well, and I'm very excited at some of the things that they've chosen that they want their donations to go to. So it's been fun, and I think a lot of that comes from their spending time with the youth group at church. Is they've had exposure to some of these great organizations that give and help, and so they were very, very open to it. So it's been nice. Makes me proud.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of our church members in her estate, we just learned, left $2 million to UMCOR.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah, and
Oh my gosh.
and I thought to myself, that is so exciting that her life with the church and her practices of supporting UMCOR and knowing about it planted a seed, and that was her enduring gift. And you just never know how people become very attached to those missions in those exciting ways. It was really cool.
With my niece who's 10 now, she's started to take an interest in birding at 10 years of age, and she's been reading a lot about it. And my sister doesn't want more toys in the house, so I found out that the Audubon Society has a young birders club, and we went to our first session this Saturday.
Oh, neat.
And we're able to start planning out the next year so that we could go monthly to these meetings
fun.
together, spend time together. And she got so excited about it. She did, but not just because she schooled me twice on 2 of my observations and got the master birders to let me know that I was wrong, but in the fact that she was so excited about it. We got permission from the Audubon ladies that she is so advanced for a 10-year-old birder already that she's going to be allowed to do a Christmas bird count with us, because they usually don't allow anybody under the age of 12 to join. So she got special permission from the Audubon. So and then we took out our 6-year-old nephew along with our niece and my 23-year-old niece and my mom, who's in a wheelchair, to go see Camp Christmas yesterday. And we were singing Christmas songs, and I sang the Batman version of Jingle Bells. And my little 6-year-old nephew had never heard of it, and it ended up being the funniest thing he'd ever heard in his whole entire life. And he just had this most infectious laugh, though he did end up calling Batman Farty Pants is what he was calling him. But my mother just loved it. She goes, I don't think I've ever heard him laugh so much and talk so much and be engaged so much with everybody. So it was a good experience, and those experiences, I think with our kids, we always tried to make sure we had some sort of experience, either a concert or something that we would go and do. Especially from their backgrounds, that, you know, they didn't need the things and stuff. They needed to know that they were going to be part of a family. So.
Oh, Jen, that's beautiful. How exciting. Is there any recorded evidence of the singing that we can see on YouTube?
Oh, Ooh, you don't want to see that.
No.
That's awesome. So we're thinking creatively and imaginatively about how to connect our Advent experiences and our spiritual journeys with the way we give, with the way we create time and flexibility. And I think that's a real beautiful way of honoring this holy season, you know. And I think it's so rich in a community like this where we can trade ideas and share, hey, this was really meaningful to us, or we might try this. Because sometimes it's hard to kind of buck the system, isn't it? To do something that's countercultural, even countercultural in families, right? I have a sister, I think Carol was telling me this too. I have a sister who just insists on gifts. You know, everybody has to give everybody gifts, and you just end up buying stuff. And it's hard to buck the system to be that family member who doesn't do that. And so sometimes we need the strength and encouragement of our faith community to help us know that that's okay, even when the family system, I would say our birth family versus our chosen family. Sometimes when there's a rub between those two, it's nice to have the encouragement of our faith community. So the Christmas present, just real quickly shifting to that new topic on page 79 is the new chapter for Christmas present. Couple things I just wanted to kind of call your attention to as you get ready to look at that. Rawle does some juxtaposition about some ideas when we understand Christmas present. And like I said, the first thing he does is really remind us how fleeting that is, and how Christmas present is just the moment we're in. And one of the authors that I just love, and you've heard Reverend Lauren and I use some of her stuff, is Kate Bowler. She writes a lot of books. She's actually a New York Times bestselling author, and she's a professor of church history at Duke Divinity School. Imagine that. And her writing, her name's Kate Bowler. She's the one who says life is beautiful, life is hard. And probably one of her strongest books was a book about her own cancer diagnosis with colon cancer when she was a young mom in her 30s, and wrestling with God about that. But she does it in such, she's funny. She has a podcast. Her podcast is Everything Happening, if you want to kind of hear her. And she interviews everybody from Oprah Winfrey to, you know, real well-regarded theologians. You know, she's kind of pop religion in that regard. But the book that I draw from a lot right now is called Good Enough. And it's, she says 40-ish devotionals for a life of imperfection. But if you Google her, you'll see lots of her different stuff. But she talks about life, you know, our present just being fleeting. And here, let me bring up a poem that I thought would be kind of fun for us to reflect on as we're thinking about, whoops. Can you guys see my screen, but not my, hold on. There, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, a blessing for a joyfully mediocre journey. And in her book, she says she hates the word journey. We use it too much, she says, in the church, and I agree. She says, I fundamentally hate the word journey. Journeys are for Frodo Baggins and the 1980s band who took the midnight train going anywhere. But anyway, she ironically, she titled this For the Mediocre Journey, but she says, blessed are you who realize there is simply not enough time, money, resources. Blessed are you who are tired of pretending that raw effort is the secret to perfection. It's not, and you know that now. Blessed are you who need a gentle reminder that even now, even today, God is here, and somehow that is good enough. If you want to take a picture of that screen, you can. If you want to hang on to that for your Advent journey, I think she writes like that. She just kind of gives us generous space to consider our present. But what I thought we could do is think a little bit more about that in the context of two of the juxtapositions that Rawls will use in the next chapter. One of the juxtapositions is the journey of the Holy Family from Bethlehem to Egypt. And Julie, did you already read some of this? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really interesting to me. Made me think something very different than what I've always thought before.
Yeah. So you might remember that right after the Christmas story, everything's warm and fuzzy and beautiful and angel alleluias.
Right.
The Holy Family gets told in a dream to leave Bethlehem and to go to Egypt. And do any of you remember why they're told to leave? What's Herod doing?
Killing
Yeah.
babies, male
Killing
babies.
Yeah.
He's so threatened by this baby that's been born in Bethlehem, or not even, I mean, the only thing he's got is the news of it, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't know for sure if it even happened, that he calls for the slaughter of any infant babies. And so the Holy Family has to flee as refugees. So that's a profound image in itself.
Right.
To Egypt. But one of the things that Matt Rawls does, and I really enjoyed that, actually, it was some of the best part of the book so far for me, was he reminds us, what does Egypt represent for Jewish people? Not right now, but back then. What
Enslavement. Yeah.
enslavement, right? That was, the slaves were in Egypt when Moses liberated them, right? So Egypt is about enslavement, about oppression, about not having a voice. And yet, in the same way that the prophet Isaiah talked about, God is going to make the rough places plain. He's going to make the mountains into valleys. This idea that Egypt now is a refuge, a land that was prior throughout the Hebrew story, and especially in the Exodus, a land that was seen as oppressive and where the Hebrew people had been formerly enslaved. And that so God can turn around these things, turn around our understandings formally of the way we look at the world, and redeem in this case, redeem Egypt. And I think about now, even with the Israeli-Gaza war, Egypt is becoming a refuge again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're pleading to Egypt to say, open your borders and let the southern Gazans get out. And so this narrative of how God can, if we allow God, can redeem, that past that has been, for the Hebrew people, the Exodus story is the core story of their faith, and so to understand Egypt as a refuge just completely turns everything upside down. So that's a neat reflection that you can look at when you're reading that part of the book. The other part that he talks about is he uses in the Christmas story, there's a juxtaposition between, in those times, this is the way things went down, and this day the angels show up. In those times, Herod was a ruthless emperor, and this day the shepherds went to worship Jesus. It's this juxtaposition of how God can undo what we formerly have felt like this is just the way life is. This is the way the world is, with a new and a fresh perspective. So I just encourage you, when you're reading that next chapter, think about, in what ways have we closed our minds to new possibilities? and new realities that God could turn upside down.
Can you repeat that again? I'm writing this question down.
In what ways have we closed our minds to new possibilities and opportunities that God could open up in a new way? Were you able to get that, Barb?
Yeah, I think so. Uh-huh.
So I don't know about you, but when I pray for peace in Israel and Gaza, I pray with a resignation that this isn't going to get better. But God in Advent, God in Christ is suggesting, no, there could be an absolutely new way. There could be, with imagination and with leaning into the possibilities of God, there could be some kind of a peaceful resolution. And don't you love hearing about these people that dwell in the kibbutzes of Israel? That's what they're living in, communities that are fostering and hoping for and expecting a radical change in the way things are. They've committed their lives to that. That's what kibbutzes are. They're faith communities that are committing their lives to a peaceful way of life. And that's, of course, why the terrorists went there first. Because if they could undo the holy and the faithful and the imagination of these faith communities, they could cut at the heart of a people. But isn't that beautiful that they lean into that living, into that lifestyle, expecting that God is going to reveal a new thing?
It's almost like blessings in disguise, you know. I mean, I look at some of my past and man, it was hard, but now I see why it happened, because it brought me joy that I can understand. Oh, you know, it got me wiser, or you know, helped me to forgive a brother or whatever, you know. But anyway.
Yeah.
And maybe the same with the world, you know.
Maybe just me.
As long as we don't repeat our mistakes.
That's the hard part, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that? On just some of those juxtapositions? We'll have some more to reflect on next week, after we get a chance to read the chapter.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Amy, and I won't give it all away, but the way he put the reason why they fled to Egypt was totally, you know, we're thinking they're fleeing for their lives, but they're really fleeing for ultimately a different purpose that God used them for, which is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. There's some in Rawle's, he's a United Methodist pastor, but there's some kind of a predestination kind of a thinking that, you know, God was using them through this story to make this unfold. And there's all kinds of latitude in thinking about how God is using them and how they're answering. Yes, but what happened to the Judeo-Christian story? Why was that an important part of the story for the Christian communities to tell and remember about Jesus? What would it have been different if Jesus and Mary and Joseph just set up their little household in Bethlehem and lived happily ever after? You know, what is it? Why was that story, regardless of kind of how you see God kind of theologically working through the family, why would that story have been incorporated into the salvation story of the Gospels?
Yeah, it's all about what we're talking about, the whole redemption.
Right. That's right. Yeah. It's pretty powerful. Yeah.
It is powerful.
Yeah, I want to preach the sermon on the Exodus to Egypt of the Holy Family now differently than I ever have, because of the way he kind of help open that up, that thinking up. It was refreshing. Good. Well, we'll do that next week. This week we've got, just a reminder, our Blue Christmas service on Friday night at 7 in person and live stream. Maggie's going to be a part of the team that helps with that. I think Carol and Julie might be too. Or Carol, the care team. And then on the 17th, we'll have our 2 services on Sunday morning, of course, and then we'll have our Christmas orchestra service, one of the many services Ben is playing for. And I play in that one with him too. So that should be a fun service on Sunday night as well.
Amy, I have a quick question. Is Linda gonna help with the Blue Christmas service? Do you know?
Yes, Linda Marshall
Okay.
is
Yeah,
in Lauren's absence.
yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
she'll be touching base. Yeah. Two just prayer concerns, just to be sure to lift up Reverend Lauren and her health and healing. And hopefully she'll test negative after some quarantine, but that, as Maggie and Ben know, that can take a long time to finally get that negative. And many of you know Paula Herman, or have maybe met her. She sings in Shabbat and was a part of our McCurdy mission. She was in a horrific accident with a gator, not an alligator, a gator truck at her workplace, and rolled into a ravine, and then was expelled and pinned between the gator and a tree.
Oh my
Broke her
gosh.
back, broke her arm, broke her clavicle. No brain or internal injuries other than a lot of breaks of her ribs. But I know she just really, really covets our prayers, and she's hospitalized right now and will be going into rehab, inpatient rehab, for several weeks, if not months. So I know she covets our prayers as well.
Amy, can you share where she's hospitalized?
Yeah, she's hospitalized at St. Anthony's in Lakewood, but she doesn't want visitors unless we text or check in ahead
Okay.
of time.
Okay.
Just because of the rest that is so needed. And
Okay.
she's a principal at what's the Jefferson County VOTEC school?
Warren Tech.
Yeah, Warren Tech. And so she's got just all kinds of communities trying to be there. But the choir sent a card, and others have, if you want to send a card to her home, her name and information's in Shelby. So yeah, she's lucky truly to be alive. If you remember the Jeremy Renner accident, the actor who had the snowcat run over him. I mean, it was something like that. It was just awful. So, and let's go ahead and do our chat prayers. If you want to go to chat, if you click the chat bubble, you'll see at the very bottom, it says "to everyone." Does everybody see that on theirs? And then if we want to just spend a moment to lift up other prayer concerns or joys in our chat bubbles, we'll read those silently and then pray together.
That was not my choice. I was forced into it.
Y'all have a lot going on in your families and circles of friends, lifting them up. Yeah. Any others? Let's pray, my friends. Because of this amazing story, oh God, and a truth that brings light to our lives and our world, we know that you draw close to all those whom we're lifting up tonight. For John Ireland and for Veronica's father-in-law, for the Swanson family, for all those who find themselves in war's ravages, for those looking for food and just a kind hand and heart at the tin shed tomorrow, for teachers and for others who are putting off so many of their own celebrations of the season to help families and kids in their communities to learn. We thank you, God, for this time of pausing and reflecting and waiting on you, waiting with the world, on your light that does break in and shine sometimes in the most God-forsaken places. Help us be mindful, help us have the eyes of faith to watch and to look for that light and to be and share that light with others in the way we walk and the way we serve and the way we love in this season. Bless us as we continue to grow in our faith and our learning together as a community with those whom we love and those whom we will never know, but who are fully known to you. Strengthen us as we go into this night and rest and renewal for a new day of serving you and knowing you and loving you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you to you all for joining us. I hope you have a great, strong week. Holler if you need anything, and we'll look forward to seeing you, if not before, definitely this weekend. And Katie, you and I are staying on, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good weekend, too,
Thank
Amy.
you.
Peace
Bye.
and blessings.
All right.
I'm going to stop the recording, Katie.
Okay.